I never thought a few careless words could change the way I saw my whole life. "You're old and boring," she said, with that little smirk that made it sound worse than it actually was. It was just a casual comment, tossed over coffee like it didn't mean anything, but it hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't old, not really. But maybe I was boring. At least, that's what she made me feel. I live a simple life. Quiet mornings, evenings with a book or a little TV, weekends spent fixing things around the house. I don't go to parties. I don't flirt. I don't have stories that sound exciting when I tell them. And I liked it that way. Safe, predictable, comfortable. But somehow, the moment she said those words, I felt like my entire existence had been put under a microscope, and every dull, repetitive detail was glaringly obvious. Her name was Emily. Young, sharp, full of life. Always smiling, always moving, always noticing the world in a way I'd stopped noticing a long time ago. She had this way of speaking that made you feel small without really trying. And yet, I liked her, probably more than I should have. But that coffee shop encounter changed everything. After that, our interactions felt strained, awkward, loaded with things unsaid. I tried to brush it off, laugh it away, pretend it didn't sting. But inside, I was questioning everything about myself. I didn't see it coming, not at all, when the universe decided to add another twist. A few days later, I was sitting on my porch, nursing my usual evening tea, when I noticed a moving truck across the street. New neighbors, I thought. Usually, I barely glanced at who moved in. But then I saw her, Emily's sister. And she looked nothing like the playful, teasing Emily. She had this calm, quiet presence that seemed different, almost magnetic in a way I couldn't explain. I watched her unpack, trying not to stare, but feeling an odd mix of curiosity and unease. She seemed intentional in everything she did. Every box she carried, every plant she placed, it was like she was rearranging more than just her apartment. I couldn't help but wonder, who was she really? And why did it feel like she had already noticed me before I even said hello? I didn't know it yet, but the arrival of her sister would start a chain of events I could never have imagined. One that would make me question my life choices, my routine, even my own heart. And somehow, it all started with that careless, cutting comment, "You're old and boring." I didn't know it then, but my quiet life was about to get complicated, messy, unpredictable, and dangerous in ways I couldn't foresee. And the moment I finally stepped outside to greet her, I realized my world might never be the same again. I've always lived a life that most people would call ordinary. I wake up early, make my coffee the same way every morning, and tend to my little garden in the afternoons. My friends are few, but dependable. I like it that way. Predictable. Safe. Maybe even boring, but at least it's mine. Emily, though, shattered that calm world with just a few words. She wasn't cruel, not exactly. She was just honest in a way that made you feel exposed. Sharp. Young. Full of energy that made me feel older than I ever wanted to admit. And for some reason, that stung worse than I thought it would. Before she moved into the neighborhood, I had my routine and my peace. I didn't need anyone to validate my life or my choices. But Emily's words lingered in my mind, echoing at the oddest times, when I was watering my plants, when I fixed a loose doorknob, even when I was reading quietly in the evenings. Old and boring. They felt like labels I couldn't shake, even if they weren't entirely fair. Her sister, on the other hand, she was different. Quiet, deliberate, with eyes that seemed to notice things without even trying. I caught glimpses of her unpacking, arranging books on shelves, stacking kitchenware with this calm precision. She wasn't flashy or loud, and yet there was something about her that demanded attention. A presence. A subtle pull I couldn't explain. I had no idea what her intentions were, or if she even had any, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. Why did it feel like she already knew things about me I hadn't shared? Why did she glance at me in a way that made me feel like I'd been seen, fully, in a way Emily never had? Meanwhile, Emily kept popping into my life in little, unavoidable ways. Sometimes at the local grocery store, sometimes walking her dog past my house. Each time, the sting of her words resurfaced, twisting with an unspoken challenge I didn't know how to respond to. And now, with her sister across the street, it felt like my quiet, carefully managed world was being quietly invaded from two directions at once. I found myself watching, waiting, wondering what would happen next. There was something about the new neighbor, her calm, deliberate movements, That made me curious. And something about Emily that made me defensive. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt caught in this strange tension between two forces I didn't fully understand. For the first time in years, my routine didn't feel like enough. My walls, my carefully arranged comfort zones, felt fragile. Something was brewing, and I could sense it even if I couldn't see the full picture yet. And I had a feeling that when it finally revealed itself, nothing about my life would feel ordinary ever again. And then, one evening, I noticed her, the sister, standing outside, looking straight at me, smiling faintly, as if she'd been waiting for me all along. My heart raced, my mind spun, and I realized that whatever this was, it was only just beginning. The days that followed were strange. Every time I stepped outside, there she was, Emily's sister, moving gracefully, carefully, yet somehow deliberately close to my line of sight. Sometimes I would catch her watering a plant across the yard, sometimes carrying groceries in a way that made me feel noticed. And every time, my chest would tighten, a mix of curiosity and unease buzzing through me. Emily didn't make it easier. She had this way of showing up at exactly the wrong moment, laughing too loudly at a joke I didn't make, teasing me about things I barely admitted to myself. Her words had already unsettled me once, and now, with her sister nearby, they seemed to echo even louder. I didn't know if I was being judged, tested, or something else entirely. I started noticing little patterns. The way her sister glanced at me before looking away, the subtle pauses when our paths crossed, like she was waiting for me to make a move. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just neighborly curiosity. But then there was that evening when I saw her standing at her doorstep, holding a small potted plant, staring at me so directly that I froze in place. My mind raced with questions I didn't have answers for. Who was she really? Why did she give me this feeling that I couldn't explain? And Emily, she seemed to sense something too. Every casual encounter came with a sharp edge, a reminder of my age, my boring life, my place in her world. It wasn't malicious exactly, but it was precise, calculated. I didn't know whether to laugh it off, ignore it, or confront it. I tried to keep my distance, to retreat into my routines, but the tension grew like a storm cloud I couldn't escape. There were moments when I felt I was losing control, my thoughts looping around both sisters, around what they saw in me, around what I might be missing. Then, one evening, it happened. I was watering my garden when I noticed her sister walking toward me, carrying a small package. Her eyes met mine, calm and unflinching, but there was a weight behind them, like a question that demanded an answer I didn't have. I felt my stomach twist, a mixture of fear, anticipation, and something I couldn't name. I opened my mouth, trying to greet her casually, but the words stuck. And as she held out the package, smiling faintly, I realized that nothing about this situation was simple anymore. Whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to be ordinary. The package felt heavier than it was. I held it in my hands, suddenly aware of every sound around me. The distant hum of a car engine, the rustle of leaves in the evening breeze, the faint creak of my own porch steps. Her eyes were calm, steady, like she already knew what I was thinking, like she could see through every doubt and hesitation I had ever carried. "I thought you might like this," she said softly, her voice low, careful, almost teasing. She didn't give me time to respond, just smiled faintly and stepped back, leaving me holding the small box. I glanced down at it, trying to act casual, but my hands were trembling just enough for her to notice. I was painfully aware of Emily watching from her apartment across the street, pretending to water her plants, but clearly observing every movement I made. I didn't want to open it, not yet. Part of me was terrified of what it could be. Another part was drawn to it, pulled toward it by something I couldn't name. The quiet tension between us had become unbearable. It wasn't just curiosity. It wasn't just intrigue. There was something more, something pressing, like a heartbeat echoing just out of reach. Over the next few days, the pattern grew. Every encounter with Emily was sharper, more pointed. Every glance from her sister carried that silent weight, that unspoken message I couldn't decipher. And I felt myself changing, small things at first, almost imperceptible. My routine became jittery. My evenings were restless. My thoughts kept circling back to the package, to the quiet intensity in her eyes, to the subtle tension building between all three of us. I tried to escape it, to retreat back into the comfort of my small, orderly life, but it was impossible. Even when I closed my blinds and pretended to read, even when I made excuses to stay inside, the feeling lingered, gnawing at the edges of my mind. It was as though some invisible thread had been tied around me, pulling me closer to them, to something I couldn't yet understand. Then came that night. I was alone, finally, sipping my tea on the porch. The air was heavy, almost electric. I noticed her sister standing at the edge of her yard, watching me. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, the quiet stretching between us like a taut wire. Then she took a single step forward, small but deliberate, and I felt that invisible thread tighten. I knew something was about to happen. Something big. Something I wasn't prepared for. The way she looked at me, it wasn't curiosity anymore. It wasn't casual. It was a silent challenge, a question, and maybe even a warning. My heart raced, my mind spun, and for the first time in years, I felt completely exposed. I took a breath, bracing myself, and finally reached for the package. My fingers touched the lid, hesitant, and at that exact moment, a sound from across the street froze me in place. A sharp laugh, Emily's voice, low and dangerous. And I realized, too late, that nothing about this night, this situation, or these women was simple. Something was coming. Something I couldn't predict. And whatever it was, it would change everything. I opened the package, expecting something small, harmless, a gift, a note, maybe a simple gesture. But what I found made my stomach drop. Inside was a photograph. Not just any photograph, but one of me, taken without my knowledge. I was sitting in my living room, reading a book, completely unaware, and there it was, captured perfectly in that silent, accusing lens. Before I could process it, I noticed a folded piece of paper tucked beneath the photo. Trembling, I unfolded it. The words were simple, chilling. You're being watched. Not just by me. My mind raced. What did it mean? Emily's teasing words? Her sister's intense gazes? Was this some kind of cruel game? Or something far more serious? I felt a shiver run down my spine, realizing that the tension I'd been feeling for days was nothing compared to what was actually happening. And then, a sound from the street made me freeze. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, approaching my porch. I wasn't alone. Someone was coming. And in that moment, I knew my quiet, ordinary life was gone forever. The footsteps stopped at the edge of my porch. I gripped the package tighter, heart hammering, every instinct screaming at me to run, hide, do anything but face whoever, or whatever, was out there. Slowly, the door creaked open, and she stepped into the porch light, Emily's sister. Calm, deliberate, her eyes unreadable. I didn't mean to scare you, she said softly, holding up her hands as if to show she was harmless. But the photograph in my hands told a different story. Then why? I started, my voice shaking. Why would you? How did you? She shook her head, almost sadly. It's not what you think. She took a cautious step closer, and I noticed the faintest tremor in her fingers. I wanted you to see the truth, because someone has been lying to you. Not me, not Emily, someone else. Confusion crashed over me. What truth? Who? She hesitated, biting her lip. Then, with a steadying breath, she said, Emily. She wasn't trying to tease you that day. She was warning you. About her, about us. My mind whirled. Warning me? What? What does that even mean? Before she could answer, the back door of my house swung open. Emily stepped inside, her usual bright smile replaced by something darker, sharper. You're finally paying attention, she said, her voice low, controlled. I was hoping you'd figure it out before it was too late. The two sisters exchanged a glance, something unspoken, tense. My pulse raced. Figure out what? I demanded. Her sister stepped forward again. There's more at play here than you realize. Someone's been watching you for months, setting things in motion. The photo, the notes, even me moving in across the street. It was all meant to protect you. From Emily. Emily laughed softly, a sound that chilled me. Protect me? That's cute. She tilted her head, eyes glinting with an intensity that made my stomach knot. You have no idea what you're involved in. I stepped back, my hands trembling. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The quiet life I'd known, the routine I'd clung to, it had vanished. And in its place was chaos, manipulation, and a danger I couldn't even begin to understand. And just as I was trying to process it all, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out and froze. A single message appeared from an unknown number. We've been waiting for you. Don't trust anyone. I stood frozen on my porch, phone in hand, the words glowing in the dim evening light. We've been waiting for you. Don't trust anyone. My mind raced, trying to untangle the web I'd suddenly found myself trapped in. The sisters, Emily and her sister, stood before me, both watching, both waiting for me to make sense of it. And in that moment, I realized something. Nothing about this night, or any of the days leading up to it, had been random. Emily's sister finally spoke, her voice soft but urgent. I moved here because I had to. Because you needed someone watching over you. She paused, looking directly at me. Emily isn't what she seems. She's dangerous, and the photo, the messages, they were meant to alert you. To give you a chance. I felt my chest tighten. But why? Why me? Because you've always been careful. You notice things most people don't. You have instincts. You're the only one who could have survived what's coming. I wanted to argue, to deny it, to go back to my simple, ordinary life. But I knew, deep down, it was gone. That life was a memory now, a story that belonged to someone else. And for the first time in years, I felt alive in a way I hadn't before. Terrified, yes, but alive. Emily's face hardened, a mix of frustration and something darker. You think you're clever, standing there trying to piece it together. But it's too late for games now. You're involved whether you want to be or not. Her sister stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on my arm. You have a choice, but you have to act carefully. Trust your instincts. Don't be afraid to step into the unknown. I looked between them, my thoughts spinning. For years, I'd been safe. I'd lived predictably. But in a single week, my world had been turned upside down. And now, I had to decide. Retreat back into what little comfort I had left, or face the chaos that had chosen me. I took a deep breath and nodded. All right, I'll do it. I'll face it. They both gave faint, approving smiles. Emily's sister handed me the small package again, now empty except for a folded note. I opened it and read the simple words. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward anyway. For the first time in my life, I understood what she meant. Fear would always be there. Doubt would linger. But I also realized that life, the real, unpredictable, messy life, was waiting beyond my quiet porch, beyond my routine, beyond the safe walls I'd built around myself. And as I watched the sisters step back, their figures merging into the fading light of the street, I smiled faintly. My ordinary life was gone. But for the first time in decades, I felt ready for whatever came next. Some doors close forever. Others open. And once you step through, there's no turning back.